Hi everybody, this is again Mrs. Langham with Uvalde Classical Academy. All right, 6th graders, let's look at our writing and rhetoric. Okay, so today's lesson in writing and rhetoric, I believe that this is book 6 because you're in 6th grade, right? That makes sense. All right, so we're in lesson 10 and we're actually starting the for politeness, and that is your 6th commonplace. Okay, so if you would like to read along with me, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need a highlighter, and you're also going to need a pencil, of course, or you can use a pen if you want to. Just something readable. Remember, please don't write in yellow, and please don't write in your highlighter. Your highlighter is for highlighting. All right, here we go. So we are starting lesson 10, and this is going to be your 6th commonplace for politeness in the Writing and Rhetoric, book 6. All right, here we go. No doubt you've had the words please and thank you drummed into your head from the day you spoke your very first words. You say please when you ask for something. You say thank you when you receive something. But the reasons for using please and thank you go far beyond just getting what you want. Can you imagine where we would be if politeness was dropped from our day-to-day existence? Picture a scene around the dinner table without politeness. Pass the blasted butter and do it now. Oh yeah? Why should I? 'Cause I want some now. Never mind, I'll just take everything on your plate. You can see that without politeness, we would quickly go from helping each other to helping ourselves like vultures tearing at a carcass. Politeness is a way to show we care for each other. It tells other people that we are looking out for them just as we want them to look out for us. There is more to politeness than please and thank you, of course. When you pass through a door, you hold it open for the people behind you so it doesn't slam them in the face. When someone talks to you, you look them in the eye so that he knows that you're paying attention. When you're splashing around in a pool, you don't splash the little kid who's paddling around on a floaty because you don't want her to drown. All of these things can show other people that we respect and care for them. It's important to remember that politeness is not always the same in every part of the world, and it hasn't been the same in every time in history. For instance, it's an insult to show the bottom of your shoe to anyone in an Arab country because it's considered dirty. In some Asian cultures, it is a compliment to the cook to burp during a meal. However, although these customs are different from country to country, the idea is still the same. Politeness is intended to show respect to other people. The following selections are from two 19th century instruction books on politeness. These books were written to help young people fit into English society at a time when manners were pretty complicated and strict. The rules for good manners are called etiquette. You might actually be surprised by how many manners were observed back in those days. And yet you might actually like some of these manners and be attracted to them, as I am. All right, guys, so with your highlighter that you have, I would like you to go through and take a second, pause the video, and I would want you to go through and highlight maybe 2 or 3 sentences that stood out to you in that little section so that you can go back and look at them. So look at the main idea of this chapter and then find a couple of sentences that you can highlight that you can go back and refer to. Also, I want you to highlight the word etiquette, and I want you to find the definition within the text. It's in that paragraph, and I want you to highlight the definition of the word etiquette. I guarantee you will need to use that. All right, so take a second, pause it, and now welcome back. All right, we're going to continue on. We're going to be reading a story. It's adapted from the Gentleman's Book of Etiquette and Manual for Politeness by Cecil B. Hartley. All right, so sit up straight, use good manners. I'm speaking to myself here because I slouch really terribly. All right, good manners. Real politeness. Real politeness is the outward expression of the most generous impulses of the heart. It enforces unselfishness, benevolence, kindness, and the golden rule, do unto others as you would have others do unto you. This is the first principle. Thus, it is the first principle. I still read it wrong. Sorry, rewind. Okay. Thus, it is the... I did it wrong again. Starting over. Thus, its first principle is love for the neighbor, loving him as yourself. If politeness is but a mask, as some people tell us, it is a mask which will win love and admiration, and is better worn than cast aside. If you wear it with the sincere desire to give pleasure to others, and make all the little meetings meetings of life pass off smoothly and agreeably, it will soon cease to be a mask. You will find the virtue becoming habitual, and finally natural and part of yourself. Pass over the defects of other people, be prudent, discreet, and at the proper time reserved, yet at other times frank, and treat others with the same gentle courtesy you would wish to extend to yourself. True politeness never embarrasses anyone, because its first object is to put all others at ease, while it leaves to all perform. Sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me today. While it leaves to all perform freedom of action. Yet's not even in here. I don't know why I said yet. I don't know. We're going to start this sentence over. Yet again. Ha 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 ha. Okay, bear with me. It's been kind of a long day. First day of distance learning. Ah. Okay, I hope you found that amusing. Back to the book. We're on page 183. True politeness never embarrasses anyone, because it is the first object. I already read that, but oh well. Because its first object is to put all others at ease, while it leaves all perfect freedom of action. You must meet rudeness from others by perfect politeness and polish of manner on your own part, and you will thus shame those who have been uncivil to you. You will more readily make them blush by your courtesy than if you meet their rudeness by ill manners on your own part. Politeness may be extended to the lowest and meanest, and you will never by thus extending it detract from your own dignity. Sorry, I didn't mean to read that so roughly. A gentleman may and well treat his washerwoman with respect and courtesy, and his bootlack, and apparently a bootlack is a person who polishes shoes, with pleasant, I actually don't know how to say this word either. I don't know. I don't know. Where just gets Affability. I should know that, but it's been a long day and I don't. So we're going to skip it for right now, but we're going to look that up. That's going to be our goal for the next class. All right. With pleasant something, yet preserve perfectly his own position. A polite, finished gentleman must be polite at all times and under all circumstances. There is a difference between politeness and etiquette. Real politeness is inborn and may exist in a primitive person, while etiquette is politeness reduced to the rules in a good society. A man may be polite in his heart, yet show in every movement an arrogance of the rules of etiquette. You may find him with his elbows upon the table or tilting his chair in a parlor. You may see him commit every hour gross breaches of etiquette, yet you will never hear him intentionally utter one word to wound another, and you will see that he habitually endeavors to make others comfortable. On the other hand, you will meet constantly in the best society men whose polish of manner is exquisite, who will perform all the niceties of good breeding, who never commit the least act that is forbidden by the strictest rules of etiquette, yet under all this mask of chivalry, gallantry, and politeness will carry a cold, selfish heart, will, with a sweet smile, graceful bow, and elegant language, wound deeply the feelings of others, and while passing in society for models of courtesy and elegance of manner, be in feeling as cruel and barbarous as a savage. So I would say to you, cultivate your heart, cherish there the love for the neighbor, unselfishness, charity, and gentleness. Okay, we're going to stop there for just a minute and we're going to talk about it. So I want you to get your trusty highlighter out again, and I want you to do something first. So the first thing I want you to do is take a look at the paragraph that or the couple of paragraphs we just read, and see if you can identify the thesis statement. Remember that a thesis statement is the main idea in a paragraph. It's going to tell you what is your story about, what is this essay about, what's your paper about. Remember, it has to be provable and it must be arguable. So you have to have both sides. Remember, a thesis statement is not a fact, right? My dog is a pet. That's not arguable. That's a statement. So you're looking for something that is arguable. You could say, my dog is the best pet in the world. That would be argumentable. I don't know. Arguable, I think. All right, so take a second, find that thesis statement. I'm watching you. I know if you're actually working. Did you find it? Okay, you were right. It's in the first paragraph. Okay, so if you look at that very first sentence that starts off, real politeness is the outward expression of the most generous impulses of the heart. It enforces unselfishness, benevolence, kindness, and the general golden rule, do unto others as you would others should do unto you. I know that's kind of wordy, but that is what the entire essay is going to be about how you act and about your character and about what it means to be polite. So that right there, that is your thesis statement. Then I want you to go through and I want you to circle at least 10 words. You can do that with your highlighter. You can do it with a pen. I want you to circle at least 10 words that you are unfamiliar with, words that you think that you need to look up. Maybe they might be words that you think are beautiful sounding and you would want to use them in your essay for politeness later. I want you to pick some vocabulary words that you can pull from for your next essay. So I'm going to give you a second. Go ahead and pause the video. I want you to find 10 words. Yes, 10, the, and, all those little tiny words that you already know the meaning of do not count. I need you to see some real thought behind this. So pause the video and find those 10 vocabulary words in the section that we just read. And welcome back. I'm so glad everyone listened to those directions and paused the video and found everything they needed. All right, we're going to keep going. All right, so remember that this is a manual that was written for gentlemen, teaching them how to behave. It's reminding them that they need to show politeness, that they need to not be argumentative, that their words matter. It's also showing us that as Christians, our words can be weapons. We can hurt someone unintentionally or intentionally with just our words, and how important it is to make sure that you are using words wisely, because that's not only polite, it's a Christian nice thing to do. So if you look at page 184 at the very top of what we read, I want you to get your highlighter out again because I forgot to tell you this earlier. But the sentence, real politeness is inborn and may exist in a primitive person, while etiquette is politeness reduced to the rules in a good society. Please highlight that sentence. Later, we're going to have a debate that's going to talk about the differences between politeness and etiquette. And so that sentence right there is going to give you a good basis. So make sure you highlight it, star something next to it, because when we do our debate between those two ideals, you'll need to refer back to that sentence. All right, so we're going to continue on in the air of politeness. Remember, no slouching. Okay, here we go. In some countries, royalty... Let me start over yet again. In some countries, royalty rule... Okay, third time's a charm. Etiquette. In some countries, royalty rules the etiquette, but it often happens that pride will blind those who make the rules, and the results are often fatal. For an example, I will give an antidote. The kings of Spain were some of the proudest and vainest of all the kings in the earth. They made a rule that it was punishable by death to touch the foot of the queen. The individual who thus offended, no matter under what circumstances, was executed immediately. The young Queen of Spain, wife of Charles II, was riding on horseback in the midst of her attendants. Suddenly the horse reared and threw the queen from the saddle. Her foot remained in the stirrup, and she was dragged along the ground. An immense crowd stood looking at the spectacle, but no one dared for his life to attempt to rescue the poor woman. She would have died had not two young French officers, ignorant of the law which paralyzed the Spaniards, sprung forward and saved her. One stopped the horse, and whilst he held the bridle, his companion disengaged from its painful position the foot of the young queen, who was by this time insensible from fear and the bruises which she had already received. The two officers were instantly arrested, and while the queen was carried on a litter to the palace, her young companions were marched off, accompanied by a strong guard, to prison. So in case you don't know what just happened, there was a queen. No one was allowed to touch her foot. Two guys who didn't know the rules saw her being dragged by her horse, and so they stepped in to help, and they touched her foot. And even though they saved her, they're still being sent to jail. Great story. Let's keep reading. The next day, sick and feeble, the queen was obliged to leave her bed, and on her knees before the king pled for the pardon of the two Frenchmen, and her prayer was only granted upon condition that the audacious foreigners left Spain immediately. There was no country in the world where etiquette is carried to so great a length as in Spain. The following anecdote, which illustrates this, would seem incredible if it were not for this historical fact. Philip III, King of Spain, was sick. Being able to sit up, he was carefully placed in an armchair which stood opposite to a large fire, and the wood was piled up to an enormous height. The heat soon became intolerable, and the couriers retired from around the king, but as the Duke de something, I don't know, Dussede, Duke D, we're going to call him Mr. Duke D, the fire stirrer for the king, was not present, and as no one else had the right to touch the fire, those present dared not attempt to diminish the heat. The great chamberlain was also absent, and he alone was authorized to touch the king's footstool. The poor king, too ill to rise, in vain implored those around him to move his chair, but no one dared touch it. When the grand chamberlain arrived, the king had fainted with the heat, and a few days later he died, literally roasted to death. Yeah. Okay, I shouldn't be laughing. That's a pretty sad ending to that story. But remember how in Bible class we talked about the differences between blindly obeying rules and then honoring your authority. So remember how we talked about how God has called us to obey the laws of the land. Absolutely. When there's a law of the land, the speed limit is 25 miles an hour, then you should go 25 miles an hour. But we also talked about how God says that there is a limit to that, not the speed limit, but there is a limit to what you need to honor. So if the laws of man go against the laws of God, then you have a choice. Are you going to bow down and worship Baal, kind of like the Old Testament did with some of those kings that, put laws and edicts that you would only worship Baal or you would only worship whatever foreign god? That was a law of the land, and people of that day had to make a choice. Are they going to obey that law, or are they going to do what's right because they know that that's right? So remember, we've talked about that idea that you should obey the laws of the land until they conflict with the laws of God. And when they conflict with the laws of God, then you're obligated to obey the laws of God, but you have to do it in a respectful way. You can't just be, I'm wild and crazy. You have to keep that respect, because respect is at the core of who we are. And so remember, if the laws of God do not violate that law of man, then you need to obey it. Right? So in this time of the COVID-19, we're all supposed to practice social distancing, right? We're all supposed to be here. That's kind of becoming a law of the land. And even though it puts us out, and even though it's frustrating, it actually does not violate the law of God, because no one's saying that we have to worship a computer screen or that we have to worship money. They're giving us the choice to worship where we want. There's nothing going on. They're just saying, hey, protect the people around you, respect the people around you, don't cough on people, no wiping boogers on anyone. And, that's important for the greater good of keeping everybody safe. And so we need to remember that there's a good balance of respect there. So as we're reading this stuff about etiquette and about respect and about politeness, keep our Bible conversations in mind, because remember, in our classes, everything rolls together. Remember, Latin rolls into grammar, and grammar rolls into Bible, and Bible rolls into history, and history rolls into writing, and blah, 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 and all that rolls into literature. It's really cool, but you have to keep all that in mind. All right, we're keeping going. The next little section that we're going to read is actually called Etiquette for the Ballroom for the Gentleman. But I'm looking here at the pages, and I think I'm actually going to do this in a separate video so that everyone has an opportunity. So what I would like you to do is go ahead and make sure that you have all 10 of your vocabulary words in that section between pages 182 and 185. And if you don't have those vocabulary words, remember, you need to circle them. If you come across a vocabulary word that you have circled that you don't know the meaning of, you're sitting next to a computer. Go to dictionary.com, type it in, look up the meaning. You're smart, you're intelligent, you can do this. All right, guys, I will look forward to seeing you in our next video when we learn about etiquette for the ballroom. You want to see me dance? All right, talk to you later. Bye.